Hi, it's so great. I'm joined today by the wonderful people from CUTRA because we are talking about trans-feminist trajectories. This is a format called Queer Talk, hosted by an NGO called 1001 Plateau. Yeah, just like the Deleuzian thing, but with one plateau even more. So it's a very intellectual NGO. Probably, maybe it is because I'm working for this, and I invited the wonderful people of CUTRA to talk about a project we did together. It's a zine we did. Maybe you cannot see it right away, but it's called Transfeminist Trajectories. And in the description to this video, you're probably maybe watching right now, you will find all the links to find the zine. And I will, normally I don't do it so much, but I will introduce myself too and the project from like my perspective, because it was, we did it in a cooperative way. It was between Germany and Romania. And from the German part, there were it's the Täter das Männermagazin, which is a publication I did with some associates of mine, which is concerning critiques of masculinity, and the podcast series House of Chaos, which I do with my colleague Rosh Ziba. And we merged together with CUTRA for this project, for this zine project. And it was actually produced in the context of the Favoriten Festival, which is a free theater festival. And we wanted to take the chance in this Zoom talk to promote the zine a little and talk a little about trans-feminist trajectories, maybe in general. So that was my introduction. So now welcome my guests. It's Ali and Love from CUTRA. So yeah, maybe you can introduce yourselves or tell us something about CUTRA, maybe, because people probably in Germany won't know about it, I suppose.
So. Sure. Love, do you want to be the guest of honor?
Yes, I can try. Sorry. So I'm Love. I'm part of the CUTRA magazine collective, together with Ali, who's here with us, and Nancy and Iris, another two, how do I call them in English, participants?
Collaborators, comrades, friends, amazing people.
Yes.
Yeah, we have this queer feminist project. A project in the first place. In the first place was printed the issue, and then we put ourselves on the online platform, and we have like feminist voices, queer feminist voices in Romania who are writing on the platform cutra.ro. It's in Romanian by now, but the zine we made together was a project that we wanted also to take some texts that are written in Romanian that we really liked very much, that they were on CUTRA prints or in CUTRA online, and to make them accessible to the public, which is not Romanian speaking. And we are very grateful for this. And maybe we'll have to talk a bit about the text, because
just to give more context first on the group. First of all, anyway, hi, and thank you for the talk. So as Lavinia was saying, we are like part of the collective, which is bigger, and we are active since 2018, and the project started also with another friend of ours, Nico, who's not part of the collective anymore, but who helped us build the project. So just to give an idea to people who are listening now, it's a small project, we are a collective of friends mostly that collaborate, and we always had this idea to have a magazine or a web magazine, because we have both, as Lavinia said, that was very pop and radical, but also, accessible and political and anti-capitalist and so forth. So we kind of tried to move in between these dimensions that were very more activist oriented, but also more mainstream, at least aesthetically or appealingly so, not so with the values behind. But yeah, it's a small project, and we gone over the years with, small finances, our own finances, and just, yes, we would like to be a bigger project. We are not so big, but also not so small. And in Romania, you don't have other publications that just talk about feminism and queer. So for us, we are proud of that, and it's pretty special, but it's still niche. Just to give this an idea of what it is for people who don't know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, you have a very appealing website, and it all looks very pop and radical. Yeah, I totally agree. So yeah, I sadly can't read Romanian, but if I could, I would read even more on your page because it looks so enchanting with the flashing logo, and it's all very colorful and pretty. And yeah, so yeah, and that's actually what you talked about is kind of the ground where we come together in our common project, like you said, to find a radical but still approachable way of talking about like queer feminist views and decolonial views and stuff, but to make it not totally. Oh, now somebody's calling me. That's very strange. Yeah, but to make it accessible. And I think we kind of managed this to put this, I will again drop this wonderful zine. And maybe I can, there are a lot of pictures in here, but because we're not doing screen sharing right now, we will have to download the PDF because it's for free and you can have it. We have a printed copy, and we wrote a wonderful editorial. That's where it starts. And then I will read some of the text, and maybe we can say something about why we chose these texts. I will just go from, but I can even read the Romanian title. So I will translate it in English, and then we can see.
Yes.
It starts with the first text in the zine. It's actually written by me, so it's very easy to talk about that. It's called in English, "All Men Are Perpetrators?" ? Because this is actually a text I wrote for our magazine, the Täter das Männer magazine, because and this is a topic I'm approaching in this text is about this thing like how can you embrace masculinities from a critical point of view without just co-opting how should I call it, the ideological concept of patriarchal cis white maleness, which is kind of to put it in a German context, it's kind of the way to go for people actually having this privilege. They kind of connect to this very rigid idea of what masculinity can be. And this text is about in a way softening it up and giving different ways of approaching the critique of masculinity, not just from maybe because I won't talk too long, but it's often
please, it's interesting. It's interesting.
It's because how I got to know a very the how to put it, the most radical critiques of masculinity in a German context actually come from a kind of Marxist psychoanalytical point of view, which I like for its historical foundation, but which I kind of sometimes, how to put it, it kind of disencourages a lot of people to experiment and find own ways of subverting and reimagining masculinities, which for me is, I think this conflict is very interesting because I always see that between this queer feminist gesture of self-invention, especially if you move it to a liberal space, can easily end up being you can be anything you want. You can just experiment and break the code and be yourself, which is not the radical anti-capitalist way of putting it, but still it's in a lot of minds. And so I try to balance these two things in my approach, to see the historical, like biographical way in which we are all like put in a very, how to put it, a very, I just call it boring, a very boring framework of gender identity, which is binary and which is very enclosed. And for me, and to contrast it with this big imagination of like a multi-gendered and free and fluid and floating kind of experience of gender, and try to connect these, which actually would, where I could come maybe later to, is kind of the way I would figure a trans-feminist approach, like between this historical way of a body and the stories being told with the body, and so making a connection between a more materialist and a more, like, how to put it, a more focused on symbols and signs, which is like sometimes the way queer feminist goes, that we just talk about stories and language and forget about like maybe the incorporation in its deepest sense. So that was a lot, because
yes,
it was my
very good.
yeah, great, isn't it?
Thank you, Xenia.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
and so
yes.
yeah. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't have, I mean, I have lots of questions, but I was thinking also how it's interesting you were saying this, this more mainstream ideas around identity and masculinity and also queerness, and then the more radical ones. And I feel all in between these, there is some sort of, what I perceive, there is some sort of new weird essentialism or gender determinism by another name, like at some point with queerness we have deconstructed this gender determinism, but then we come back from the back door somehow sometimes and believe that this, what at the end is, if we have also a Marxist framework or the constructivist framework, gender could be this political fiction and historical and geographical category, specific category. We go back to being very deterministic, with associating masculinity with like this is it, masculinity, you have this existential guilt and there is no way out, and you have to fustigate yourself for an eternity to repent your privilege, which of course it makes sense in certain contexts to have this view of like the pinnacle of society, the cis white male, whatever, but then it's strange when it goes in this very deterministic direction. And I think that's why your text was so interesting with the question mark, because it is such a fundamental question in queer and feminist spaces, and I feel, yes, I have a lot of feelings about it. Because masculinity, it's something, it's a construction, but it's also something one can play with, and something that can have a lot of value also for trans people of all paths. And also I think the trans masculinity is a very interesting question for trans men, for example, or trans masc people. And then what is this thing that you tend to, what is this thing you desire, this masculinity, if it's this demonized thing that carries within itself this evilness, like in a lot of course, ironic inverted commas.
Yeah,
we don't
it's
know.
always a balance. It's always a balance,
Yes.
Yeah, like that's, like masculinity for me. If I like where I'm now with my thoughts on it is like if we in a radical and queer inspired space deconstruct masculinities, we also deconstruct femininities. It's not about reconstructing a given binary order, but it's about like embracing what is actually, from like, maybe to put it like this, what is hidden, what is kind of locked in these categories, which we can like maybe reinterpret or disidentify and go other ways with it. Because like when, like maybe to put one more, like if I think about like a feminist critique always was a woman can be everything, so she can be like everything a man can be. So, but then in the end, if you follow this approach, these categories like get lost. And
Yes.
and so what I'm most like struggling with now is like, because of these categories getting kind of mixed up, which is for me a success of feminist struggle, people come back to like focusing on the anatomy or biology or stuff like that, because they actually they lose the focus or now, especially like when if you have been active in a women's movement for a long time, you maybe like you want to keep your grip on the people you're like kind of making your work for. And now we're in a situation where a lot of people start thinking about how can we actually identify bodies as male or female. And like that would be a thing like which like maybe more talk about butch and femness or stuff, maybe like take different approaches, because the queer struggle has brought up many ideas about how to configure gender without like falling in this, oh, now I am a man and now I am a woman kind of scheme.
Yes. For me, the most important thing is always to try find alliances, in the sense of how the issues and how the liberation of specific types of people actually is dependent also on the liberation of different types of people. And at the end, and maybe then we can go back to the question of transfeminism again. That's I think this is also at the heart of it. That's
so but I would get back to our text,
yes, of course.
because the themes kind of reoccur, so we will find we'll find a way. I think the next one is more in this kind of what I called is it actually, I will look in our in our content. The next I will flip through the pages. It starts with, like I told you, in German, and then it goes and then it's in Romanian, the same text. And the next text is actually this is it in Romanian. So it's about Roma feminism, and it's this is kind of an example of a text which is when we translated this text and we talked about this, it's a very rare text in German discourse, for example. There are very few texts which are really focusing on Roma feminism. And so this is a very interesting a text, and it's about maybe you can say something about this text, because you actually maybe know the context better from which it's
so it's written by Carmen Gheorghe, who is the co-founder of Roma Women Association, and now I think it's called Iromnia. And I think she's talking about exactly about this, like what kind of activism, feminism, it's fits the Roma women experiences, because a lot of times people are connecting it with the Black feminist activist. Sorry, I'm not so fluent in English, so I will try my best. They try to să suprapună, to
compare, juxtapose. I don't know.
But in a way, they are not the same. So she's talking also about the fury against the institutional racism and all the oppressions that Roma woman is facing in nowadays society, and I think she's engaged in and also the other Roma feminist activists, artists here in Romania, and not only. They are trying to redefine the history and the narrative for the Roma women, because it's not the same as the non-Roma feminism, and it's not the same as Black feminism. So yeah, this is the way. And I think also in the in this article, she's trying to understand why the fury, it's like why we the Roma activists have this fury, and the fury is against this, all these anti-Roma voices and the institutional antagonism, and they do a great job here in Romania. Hopefully they will have more and more support. Yeah, so this is Carmen Gheorghe, I think. Can say about her text. Please. Do you want to say more, Ali?
Oh, well, I think you explained it very well. I think Roma feminism in Romania, it's very, very powerful, and especially with this association that the author is part of in Romania, they're doing amazing jobs, also materially speaking, in Roma communities, of community empowerment, and they have very, very big impact and a very important discourse. So and in the text also, as Lavinia was mentioning, they were. She was presenting, very specific also examples and cases from, very violent local Romanian political voices that make very shocking declarations about, Roma women reproductive rights, or very, very racist sentiments that is very out in the open in the political field, and that has very. Like the discrimination of Roma women, of course, as the author explains, is this intersection also of sexism and racism. So the issues are very pressing that she's presenting. So I think it's great. We are so happy that this text is translated in German also, and hopefully it will be read by more people.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, so I'm continuing. The next one, I think. I don't have a lot to say about. It's called Nothing New in Patriarchy by Caroline Wiedemann, which is kind of a text. It's kind of an introductory text. That's why we chose it for the zine, because it's kind of giving a status quo, like how is the situation concerning patriarchy, misogyny, sexism in Germany. It's a very fact-based text. So it's very good for the zine to give to just like illuminate the German context, and maybe refocus on like how patriarchy is still working, even though you have kind of this liberal and like judicial framework in which you could suppose, it got so much better for non-cis male people, but it actually didn't. It's just the ways in which a patriarchy works change, and there's still a lot of violence. So this is what this text is about. The next text is about liberal feminism. It's kind of a great critique of it, and it's called Nobody's Free Till We're All Free, Why Our Feminism Can Only Be Anti-Capitalist. So there are wonderful illustrations, especially in that. So if you get the PDF, look at these wonderful images. It's very fun.
Yes, we have posters in our room with this with this.
By Alex Horgidan.
Yes, Alex Horgidan is the artist who made them, and they're very ironic because they're all about this, girl boss culture and female entrepreneur and female CEO. That of course is like the stereotypical liberal feminist image of liberation. Yes,
and it's really the images are so great. I love this one. It just shows like this girl boss telling the working women just to join the revolution, just do it. You just be the boss. It's so easy. You just
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we heard it all before. And when I was actually presenting this at the Favoriten Festival, this text actually made, I would say, maybe most fun to present, because if you face a mixed crowd in this kind of open cultural space, you always have this like hybrid mix of some very like reform oriented liberal feminists, but they like this radical thing, and you have some real radical people. And so it was kind of fun making the audience I don't know, provoking it with especially calling out this girl boss attitude, because especially in this cultural sector, in this it's very, I wouldn't say very common, but it's kind of a blind spot for many people, that they go around and say, yeah, you can do it too. It's so easy. You just write this application. Everybody can be an artist / producer / cultural worker. It's so easy. And it's actually not. So yeah, I actually am a white person born in Germany, and I can just say it again. If you don't want to do really a stupid alienated work, but be a cultural producer, you actually kind of need privileges to do it, because you cannot, even here in Germany, where you kind of get better funding, it's still not a possibility to just say, yeah, I will just be a cultural worker. It's so great. No, it's very precarious. It's a lot of struggle. So yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
I just want to say the author of the text is Laura Sandu, and she's great. She writes a lot of very good, on-point text, that's really always underline these struggles and issues.
The incompatibility of the feminism with neoliberal capitalism. I think she's very good.
Yeah, and I think a small parenthesis about the anti-capitalist feminism. I think at the beginning, when we made CUTRA, we put all this list of values we stand for, or keywords, like anti-racist, anti-fascist, whatever. And then the only one that was ever a bit controversial was anti-capitalist, and we always try to push this to make it more understood what we mean by it, because yes, it's always the one that people are a bit more weirded out about.
Yeah, but nowadays I feel it's not so much. It's not anymore so much.
Yeah, when we started, maybe.
Yeah, like 4 or 5 years ago, it was also, yeah, we are a bit like, I don't know, people, what are they going to say? And now,
yeah, I think Gen Z is great. They're all anti-capitalist.
People are feeling like, yeah, it's normal. It's anti-capitalist.
Yes.
Yeah, from my experience, maybe sometimes it's because I'm in this cultural field, and if you take an anti-capitalist approach, sometimes it's very, I don't know how to put it. People are sometimes better criticizing the capitalism outside than inside their own structures, because this is actually very, how to put it? It doesn't really seem tricky, but if you have all these precarious people, what I experience a lot is when you talk about like, we should work together, you should unionize, work together, like really, and face and maybe get in struggle. People always, they have kind of a difficulty of, because everybody's like, oh, I have these problems, and the other ones, I have these problems. So everybody's just whining. I don't want, and not seeing that we're all having the same struggle, which is the anti-capitalist, like for me, is the main point. We have to, if I just put it on this precarious sphere, we have to find a way of how to like share and cooperate in this precarious positions, in this like being forced into projects and like doing all these like little works all the time. And I feel that people sometimes, I don't know, have a difficulty of kind of unionizing or doing like
thinking collectively.
Yeah, thinking collectively, because it's very individualized.
I also would I mean, of course I agree with you, and it's sad when this happens. I also think an important point that also the text makes, it's that is not, of course, the individual person that cannot go out of this logic, or it's not the problem of the individual women manager or woman who doesn't want to, work collaboratively because she's precarious. The issue, I mean, of course, that's sad also, and that prevents collective action. But I think the real issue is that how could I say in English? The fact that capitalism takes over cannibalizes the discourse of feminism. So it's not the blame of individual people that operate in this logic. The real problem, what is underlined there, the real problem is that this becomes feminism. The equation that people make, that individual empowerment on a singular gender-based division, it's good. Now we have, now there are all sorts of memes, if you want to make it very shallow, like now we have a women warmonger, now we have a she, empress or whatever. But I think the issue is not so much the blame, not the issue. The blame is not so much, of course, on the individuals that perpetuate this, because then again we operate, in this logic. The real issue is the individualism behind this specific brand of feminism.
Yes. Yeah. So it's good that we have it in the zine, so people remember that it's a common struggle, and we have to organize solidarity. So the next text actually is like kind of what I talked about earlier about masculinity critique being very based in Marxist and psychoanalytical views. It's written by a friend actually of mine, Luca Rambazzotti called here, and he kind of tries to do this. I would call it, sometimes it's a kind of a transcendent way of trying to think against oneself from a privileged position, which is, I think I have a lot of different perspectives on this text, but I think this issue is very interesting, like how to think against privilege, or is it even possible? We had a discussion forum on like masculinities like some days ago, and it's always, and sometimes if you put it very short, sometimes it boils down to the question, should I even call myself a cis male if I criticize like normative masculinity? Should I just quit? Should I? And like what people actually say, it's a little vulgar, but they say, I could be just a non-binary person. And I really, in the end of this event, I really had to switch the focus and talk about trans perspectives more, because if you feel like you're not a cis male, you will know it. And this is very important if you talk about trans perspectives here, to remember you don't have to be, you're always trans enough. If you don't feel like belonging to a certain gender, you can always follow your knowledge about your own gender. And I think this, and when I started, when I started criticizing masculinity, especially cis-het masculinity, I thought maybe that could be an option for anyone. Just criticize it and leave masculinity. But that's not what really a trans experience is about. When I was starting fresh, I was kind of, just leave it. I can do it, but I'm a trans woman, so yeah.
But I think this goes back to the first thing we were talking about, not the essentialized value we give to, we have to abandon the ship of masculinity, and then all the good people abandon the ship. But that's also nonsense, because this is just a concept that is made up, and you give a specific value to it. And I don't know. It's interesting. I always think about it, but I don't want necessarily to open the subject, but I will very briefly, that I always think about because in Romania and in Italy, from my experience also, we don't have this, but I saw that in Germany it's popular also, this name Flinta for the groups. And I find it very interesting. I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. And because my personal and political understanding of gender is also very blurred, like these divisions between sexuality and gender, and this super identification with very specific labels, of course, is powerful and makes community, but it's also just one story we tell to each other, and historically also the separation between what a very queer man and non-binary people or trans people, it's always was very fluid in all sort of gender directions, and also for butch women, trans men. I don't mean to make these differences non-important, because they are, and of course I understand. I live in 2022 like everyone else, but it's always interesting how we make divisions and what value we assign. And I think this example that you say of abandoning masculinity and maybe embracing non-binary, it's this paradox that you create once you assign a very clear border and significance to a specific identity.
Yes. Yeah, like you said, like the German, like you mentioned this Flinter framework, which is in German for Frauen, Lesben, Inter, non-binary, trans, and agender. So women, inter people, non-binary people, trans people, and agender people. This is kind of used it's kind of the new framework how feminist spaces try to be trans inclusive. And it's very controversial. It's not very controversial, because actually the real controversy in Germany is kind of trans people fighting turfy feminists. This is like the big one.
Yes.
But still within the community, and that's a very big problem actually in Germany, because we have a lot of reactionary like kind of trans semi-inclusive to exclusive to even fascist pipeline situation. We have, and I talk about this in these queer talks a lot, we have a big problem of talking about our different approaches on gender and experience and stuff, because we always have to like push outside and no, because if I say anything like, oh, I'm not sure and I'm thinking about this and that, then I always have to fight like in a front. And that's a very, very sad to really find out about all these different ways of thinking about gender. And
I think it's nice, like these things that we are doing, the zine we made and other things. I think this is one of the solutions to these issues, to realize across Europe or across, other places in the world, that there is very different ways of thinking about gender and queerness that can be in alliance, because at the bottom line of all this, like trans-feminist and queer people, they are everywhere in alliance against bigger issues, like you were saying. And I think it's very nice to get out of the very strict definitions and discourse we make locally, and to realize that maybe already, a few state borders away, people are thinking about it in a different way, but these people are your comrades and your allies, and that's very nice.
Yes. Yeah. It's a lot of translational work, and so it's good that we started this. Yes. The next text is very, I liked it very much. It's about queer time and space in Romania. It's called Queer East. And I thought I really enjoyed this a lot, because this was so many new things. I really, from my geographical point of view, I didn't really know at all, because I won't talk about it. You can do it. But still, it was very informative for me reading this text. So can you maybe say something about it, because I liked it? I can't say what I liked about it then. I don't know. It's so great.
Love, you want to say something, or maybe you want to?
Actually not so much.
Okay, then maybe Xenia, you can say what you liked and I can add on it.
Okay, what I remember, I cannot really give this, I cannot give it a full recap, but I remember it's about like in a post-communist era to think about the relation between, like, on the one hand, like not just adapting like Western frameworks of queerness into a Romanian context, but on the other hand, not like idealizing the communists' framework as like a queer utopia, and then having these problems with aligning with political fractions in your own country. Like if you like focus more on the Western queer concept, you get in kind of in line with the progressives, liberals. And if you focus more on the like the past, like the like own geographical history, you get maybe in line with the retro reactionary people. So it's this act of balance that was very, very interesting to me to read.
I'm also, I find it personally very interesting because I'm also not from Romania. So when I arrived in 2016, I also learned about these things. So what I'm gonna say, I give credit to people like CUTRA or to people from Bucharest that I learned a lot from about these issues. But just to give some context, like until 2001, there was this article in the Penal Code, Article 200, that was criminalizing homosexuality and homosexual activity. And it was, taken away as a kind of political trade to be part of the European Union. And it's very, very strong then this discourse that LGBT rights are some sort of modernity that comes from the West. So there are two main discourses. There is a very pro-European, pro-Western civilizing sort of discourse that, associates Western Europe and Northern Europe. This also applies in Italy sometimes, actually. So Northern Europe as this sort of modernity and this timeline that the East or the South has to catch up on to become modern, and LGBT rights are part of this. But we know it everywhere also with homo-nationalist discourses and with this racism justified as some sort of LGBT friendliness or whatever. And then there is the counter narrative that also CUTRA presents in the text with some literary examples, comes from a reaction to this that shows actually what's more queer than being queer in this oppressive context, or ways that are queer that are not this Western individualizing identity-based modernity. Maybe it's more queer, the resistance that we had in a way. But then she also brings a third, as you were saying, counter discourse to that, saying let's not self-exotify our experience or read the Eastern queer experience as this sort of enlightened, exotic, non-normative by default experience. So it's a very hard balance, because it's very hard to obtain, even strategically. It's always a matter of knowing you do it strategically, I think. Obtain certain rights and certain progress in society without wholeheartedly believe in this very humiliating discourse of like, please give us a crumble of rights because of this way more progressive, way more enlightened institutions you have elsewhere where the power lies. And I think it's very tempting to do this, unfortunately, because that sometimes gives you results or gets you to places, but it's very dramatic when this becomes internalized by people and communities that this idea of modernity, of progress, of liberal rights that come from somewhere else.
Yes. And this is a very, for me, it's a very good, I think this text is a very good entry point to decolonial thinking in general, because it really, it shows the different layers and perspectives and the problems which come up. So, and I think it's a very, so if you want to engage in a decolonial discourse, especially in the Romanian context, we can advise you to this text. It's good. Yeah. So the next text is a poem called Illegal Genders, which is a nice poem. We will not go deeper into it. It's about gender police in a way, and we all know that. The next one is again from a German author, Xenia Klein, and Xenia writes about the fear of left-wing men of feminists, and this is a kind of we put this in the zine because it's a kind of, if there is a conversation about like how to work on with patriarchy, it's in the left-wing spaces. And what's so interesting about this is that there is, how to put it, that and that's it's following the line of what the text about masculinity before was, like how people self-critiquing and then kind of thinking now we got it solved, because they don't really engage with patriarchy as a system of enclosure and of violence, but they engage with the identification, me being a man, and if I change like some attitudes or some behaviors, like detox my masculinity, I will be the good man and still follow a patriarchal pattern. And this is kind of the situation Xenia is trying to like put in perspective. Xenia is very angry. I kind of I get it, because it's really getting. I worked in left-wing spaces a lot, and it's really nerve-wracking to have people saying, yeah, I'm a feminist, I'm so, and you actually, they don't have no sense of any kind of patriarchal, like they didn't reflect on anything, but just say, I'm nice to women. And that's kind of, if you put it very short, that's what the text is about. Like we said before, like a critique is not about like optimizing oneself, but finding a common political ground to face this struggle. So that's maybe what I would nitpick from this text.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, this is fun. It's like we're going through these wonderful things. So I think the next one is by my good friend Roche. It's about queer kinship.
Maybe you can show a bit the page so we see.
Yeah, we are here. Now we're here
yes.
at Queer Kinship. We've been before at we
because it's very colorful. I like to see it again. Yes.
Yeah, it's so colorful. We came here from the it's a wonderful layout. The layout is by Annabelle Jojoy, and
yes.
All the images are taken from different artists. Some we mentioned already. Mm-hmm. Some are by Annabelle herself. And now we are coming here to Queer Kinship by Roche Ziba, which is kind of a reworked transcript of a podcast we did. But because I'm very into that topic, I will just maybe take this from a very personal view.
Sure.
Talking about queer kinship for me, especially during COVID, and even like after coming out and having all these changes in my private life and all these conflicts with people, I really learned to appreciate the concept of queer kinship much more, and in a kind of seriousness which I really didn't understand before, because I don't know, because what for me was, and it is kind of a life-changing thing to really realize I cannot go on living my life like having this is my blood family and these are my friends, because that doesn't work out. And it's a very, and it's bad. I don't know how to put it, because in the end, family should be a way of treating each other, a way of interacting, a way of taking responsibility, of caring and all this. And I think for me, it's a very, I'm really kind of walking around and telling this, you have to really think about it, because people say, queer kinship, oh, it's nice. Yeah, you can choose your family. And that's not actually the point. It's about being really kind of, from a queer perspective, forced to rethink what is family for me, because I cannot rely on just going back to where I was born and find, because no offense to my blood relatives, still I had to live as trying to pass as a man for most of my life in a family context. So there are a lot of ruptures, and so I really have to embrace this. And I realized that this, for me, in some way forced me to think about like privileges too, like what kind of resources do I have, what can I share with, because that's what for me family is about too, about not only saying you need help, good for you, but really being there. And this is, so it's a very emotional thing for me to
That's so nice. Thank you for sharing this. No, I feel it's very important. I think what you just said about it's the condition that we are forced to rethink what our connections are. Because yes, if you are outside of this pattern of reproduction of the nuclear heterosexual family, you have to find meaning. And I think that's the beauty of it also, because it's an option that maybe could work way better than all the, dynamics of violence or oppression that are still in the, heterosexual patriarchal family. And think what is actually caring about each other, and who are the people that we can have a life worth living with, in terms of care, love, responsibility, friendship. If that we cannot do the thing that looks like the perfect idea of what a family should be, what we have around us, and how can we make something different that is still fulfilling or more fulfilling, hopefully.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, no. Yeah, so like you already realized, this zine is it's an encyclopedia of inspiration. So you get it and read it, and yeah, I hope you will. I think now, I'm kind of still skipping. Now, I think it's the last text in the zine. It's I wouldn't even know how to put this in English, like. We walk on with questions. I don't know. In German, it's very easy. Because we're moving on in contradictions. Like maybe this is the point.
Yeah.
Întrebând, mergem înainte is like
Yes.
putting questions, we go on, or making us
questioning.
Questioning things, we go on.
Yeah, and this is there's a lot in this text.
Yes.
I think as you, maybe if you read this zine from the beginning to the end, you reach this text, you will see, okay, there's even more perspective. So you already got so many perspective on queering and masculinity and decolonializing and East-West and everything, and now it's
questions.
The apocalypse.
Opening up the frameworks.
And now the apocalypse came.
Yes, kind of, yeah.
The end is near.
The end is near, and we really have to envision really, really new and different perspectives. It starts. It's about Zapatist ideas, but it's about spirituality. It's about about connections. About like. I couldn't even sum it up in a way, because it was a ride reading it. I would say it was, and it's still working in my mind, because like I said before about like maybe Luca's text, there are a lot of some things I think, yeah, I can agree on this, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm not sure about this. But this is the nature of the text, because it's kind of a poetic journey in a way. Sometimes, would you agree with that? Or
yeah. You want to say, or should I?
No, you can.
Yeah, for me, it's like, I think what Carolina Vozian, the author, wanted to say, or what I understood, is like we can find portals of I don't know, against defeatism, for instance, because we are more and more aware of the climatic change and how this apocalypse it's going to look like. And from our point of view, it's like, maybe sometimes we say like, okay, nothing can be done. But she says, like in other authors, like visionary authors, that she called, she said, okay, maybe there is a chance to rethink the structures, or like how to reconsider imagining, it's like through this imaginary process to imagine other structures, other political and economical structures. And because, as she says, we are facing this propaganda over and over again of the capitalist propaganda, the neoliberal propaganda. So we are kind of stuck in this imaginary that they are building for us, and maybe a way of getting out of there is to try to make some imaginary inventive, and it's like trying to get out from our mind through the mind, and also the solidarities that we are trying to do in our space and so on, and not because the enemy, it's big and it's everywhere, and it's a way of escaping this, and it's not I don't think it's escapism. It's
no, I think it's definitely not escapism. You're right. She's using this speculative feminist science fiction way of looking at things, to say how we can do a mental shift of the paradigms that are operating now in the world, and then how to take action based on this paradigm shift. So it's not just like, oh, we can imagine we're somewhere else. It's like how, by imagining that things can be different, we can enact care and solidarity in our micro levels, because otherwise the alternative is, to be desperate and feel like, okay, that's it, everything is shit, the world is going to shit, climate change is happening, and then what? And there is, because she's also a literary author, and I think it's very interesting how she uses these examples from fiction and I think now it's a big moment anyway, that a lot of people are discussing about this, about speculative literature and feminist science fiction, how can help this alternative word making process that, it's very generative actually.
Yeah. And the text takes us to the question of trajectories.
Yes.
Yeah. Like you say, like it's like a lot of people have a very dark vision of the future. So maybe like after going through our zine, maybe we can find what do we think? What could be trajectories, or what? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Last time I had this talk, like one person actually said, I have such a dark vision. I believe the trans people are being standing on the streets marked with a sign or stuff. So people are really getting, even in this discourse, without even facing the climate apocalypse, a lot of people fear that like this like pressure put on liberal societies will actually cause this fascist skip like we had in history before. And it's kind of happening in some places, like the situation get worse, and like it's in Germany like this, like we are now having like rising prices, inflation and stuff, and it's Germany, everything's fine, I know, but still the people are like going to the far right for solutions, and that's kind of I think that's kind of the fear people actually in Germany have, because people in Germany actually, I don't know, they think climate crisis is coming last to us. That's kind of the feeling I get by a lot of people, like, it's coming from the periphery. But I still see this challenge in a world of like very individualized fighting and infighting. If a lot of pressure is coming up, how will solidarity work? That's,
Yeah, well, I think I mean, I can get very easily into this negative mindset. So it's not like I have to talk myself out of it a bit now, but another part of me really believes that this potential for alliance and solidarity and mass power. And I think this concept that we touched upon today, also the concept of family, of care, of responsibility, of questioning, of like the awareness that people approach things from different standpoints in different parts of the world, and these people have the same goals and the same needs and the same very similar experiences at the end of the day. And I really think that there is the possibility to build solidarity and build resistance if we, and I think that's for me why it's so important, this anti-capitalist feminism, if we can resist this individualizing mentality, and this, because this individualizing mentality is very tempting. It's very tempting to think of your experience as this unique individual that is at the, you know, at the crossroad of many different labels, categories, and specific of course specific oppressions are very real, material, and they exist. But the fact that we are oppressed differently, it's a way that we can think, okay, we are all part of this net that we together can, you know, it's not about, oh, you have one less oppression than me and one more privilege, so I will focus on you being my enemy. It's about, okay, wow, look, these things that hurt us all, we can take down together. And yes, I mean, it's very complicated because I understand where all the infighting comes, and, you know, everyone that is in social movements and in feminist movements and queer movements knows the frustration that comes with, you know, trying to make alliance with people that don't want to see your full experience or your full humanity. But I also think it's so fundamental that we keep a focus on what is the points of understanding for making alliance in the left and make a resistance to this populism, because populism comes when there is no alternative for people to turn to. And I think that's fundamental, you know, not to have an elitist mindset, and not to, you know, be critical for the sake of showing off your intelligence or see how woke you are, when there are very real material issues that people in their humanity are experiences. And yeah, I don't know, transnational solidarity, class solidarity, this, you know, old school things that can be ours, I mean, like queer, trans, and, you know, we are part of this. And I think that could be amazing if we could keep this in mind.
I'm feeling better already.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you say, it's a very, yeah, I think you put it so well, like this temptation of, like, because it's so very interesting analyzing your, like, finding out what are my specific ways of being oppressed, but still seeing these are just like stories of oppression told with my body. So in a way, so, and this is a common connection. And I sometimes feel, yeah, that's why I like speculative and visionary approaches too, because I sometimes feel people are really locked in this concept of individualism and subjectivity being more or less the same. So if I am like, and this is a very kind of snobbish and intellectual thing, like I criticize myself, I know what I do, and you mix up this like very interesting process of subjectivation and critical thinking with that's mine, like approaching it as your own, and like, but it's very hard to interject this process because it's always happening, because that's what capitalism really cares for, like marketing these differences and making us fight, like, oh, you have a little less and I have a little more, maybe we can, if we fight for the same job, I can get it and you won't. And this create this this pseudo discourse about like, which is supposed to be about emancipation, but it's really about like, how do we compete? And this is, it's very difficult to sometimes to break it up. If people already start with a very strong anti-capitalist sense, it's not that hard, but yeah.
Another thing I wanted to say that is connected to this is that when building alliances, when people show up in ways that are not perfect, and in ways that will not be what we 100% desire and what we feel is 100% right, correct, safe, whatever. And I think it's very important to keep in mind the points of context that exist beyond these imperfections. And I don't mean, I'm denying your existence as a human. I don't mean to make alliance with people who want you dead or deny your humanity. I just mean, when we all sorts of people try to come together. Even the more similar people, there will be clashes and conflict, and this will happen the more we are, have come from different paths of life. The more things will feel, not so always okay. But when there is the true intention of being there for each other and show up, I think we can try to stand and negotiate this discomfort that initially will happen in ways that are productive.
Yeah. Yeah. That should be the trajectory. Yeah, maybe if you read our zine, like I put it here again, and like I said, you will find it in all the links below this video. You can maybe, hopefully find trajectories, and there is a common future. I think, I believe in it actually, but it's not given to us. It will take struggle and complication. Like you said, it won't be, oh, I'm going to this space and it's so good and I feel so welcome, and now I built this alliance which is so safe, and the people I work with are all so caring. No, there will be all these interruptions, and the systems of oppression will keep working while we are fighting. So there won't be a safe stopping point where you can say, oh, now we got it. There will be points of celebrating, coming together and feeling safe and good, but it's not like in this way you cannot get it done, in like not individually and not even as a group. You can find a group which can give you the security and the power to continue fighting, but it's sometimes and you have to be allowed to be exhausted. Like that's what we are. Like we start our editorial like with these words. Maybe I can read like to conclude our beginning of the editorial, because it says, we're tired, we're busy, and we are in struggle. And so that's we're trying our best, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
I was thinking maybe we should also name the translators, because they did job of the technical job of doing this.
Fundamental.
Julia Dodoric and Eva Ruth Veme. They are the two.
Yes.
The translators of the texts.
Yes.
I think we maybe, because I got the imprint here, I think we named almost everyone. Maybe the one that still could be mentioned is one of the illustrators. It's the nameless Pascal, which Annabelle brought in. It's a person who is working in a how is it called, a disabled people workshop thing in Germany. Like that's a topic of its own. It's about like how disabled people are treated and silenced in this context, and especially focusing on gender issues, not allowed to express their own identities and just are being rendered mad, which is actually kind of interesting connections to how people dehumanize trans and queer experience too. So there are a lot of possibilities for solidarity. So we're very happy to have the images of the nameless Pascal in this scene too. Yeah. And so, I think we
yes,
did it.
We covered everything. We made it.
Covered it. We made it, and we hope we made everyone who watched this or listened to it interested in the zine. And you can download it on many pages. Like it will be available on the site of 1001plateau.com, which is the site hosting this video. It will be on the House of Chaos page, on the Täter das Männer Magazine page, on the Denkudrom page. So it will be.
And we
everywhere.
will also publish on our magazine, on web magazine, some of the text, and maybe link the PDF in the text on CUTRA
Great.
Yeah, maybe we'll put our site also in the description.
Yes, people can have a look.
So people that maybe they want to read in Romanian some feminist content, they can do it by that link.
Yes.
Maybe just to concluding, what are you up to? You're having a good, nice winter break, or is how's your busyness going on?
Yeah, for a few weeks by now, I work too much, I think. Now I'm a bit sick and I want to get rest and get better. So it's like, yes, I need to reconstruct my immunity.
Yes, I hope you will get better by New Year's Eve so we can celebrate together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yes.
Yeah, and then in the beginning of the 2023, we'll start our work again with CUTRA.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, and I'm very happy getting to know you and
yes,
having these conversations.
Thank you so much for inviting us. It was a pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it was a very pleasant talk and informative, and constructive, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for joining, and yeah, we'll stay in touch, I hope, and see or hear from each other sometime soon. So
good.
Enjoy your evening, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.